Hey, a quick shout out to Raul over on the Ironsworn Discord, making sure to put an emoji on every episode that I put on there to share in the excitement. You are seen, you are appreciated. Enjoy the episode. Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series. You know, when I'm recording a podcast, I think one of the hardest parts for me is just literally getting started, just thinking of what are the first words I'm going to say, and that's usually in the form of a recap. And this week I decided, you know what, I don't really feel like doing a recap. I'm sweating a little bit too much over, I always worry about what is the exact phrase I'm going to use. Is it going to be awkward or not? I don't care. You know what happened last time? You can find out in last time's episode. We're going to get right back into the meat of this. So Emile has his little skiff, and it is fueled up and ready to go. He is going to undertake an expedition to try and get to the crash site of the Reacher. So I'm going to make a progress clock, or not a progress clock, a journey clock on that right now, a little progress bar. So this is journey to the crashed Reacher. I'm going to set that as a dangerous expedition, and unlike last time where the journey was kind of representative of there and back, I want this one to indeed be, this whole track is just getting there. Now, if we get there and want to head back, I think that'll just be the set a course move. Keep it a smaller kind of experience. But getting here is going to take this full progress bar. So setting it at dangerous, and let's just get started. We see Emile on the skiff kind of launching out into the distance over all this craggy, red, lava-filled terrain. Sulfuric geysers going off every once in a while, not especially close to him, but everything we can tell is just, this is clearly going to be a lot of terrain danger. And in the distance, the far distance, we can see, not the Reacher itself, but we can see the giant plume of smoke that indicates where the crash site is. It's kind of over the horizon, but we have a vehicle to get there, so let's start this journey. This is going to be... We're going to stay vigilant rather than move at speed on this. First of all, I don't think this skiff is especially capable at moving that fast. It can handle a lot of terrain because it hovers over it, but it's not like a lightning-fast bike or anything like that. It's not that maneuverable. It's just, it'll steadily get the job done. So he's just going to do what he can to keep an eye out and avoid the hazards as best as possible. So let's make that wits roll. Alright, starting things off with a weak hit. So I reach a waypoint, but this progress costs me. Envision the location and mark progress per the rank of the expedition, but either I suffer costs en route, or I face a peril at the waypoint. And in the name of getting this story kicking off, I want to do something more interesting than just making a quick suffer move. I want to find out more about this waypoint and then make a peril there. Let's make this interesting. So first off, first two boxes of progress on Journey to the Crashed Reacher are hit. But now let's find out a little bit more about this location that we've reached. Let's pull up some oracles here. This time we're not in a derelict or anything like that, but I'm going to take a look at the planet oracles of Furnace World. I'm going to try rolling a planet-side feature to see if that inspires something, but if it goes too against what we already have established about this world, then I'm just going to do some descriptor and focus. Silica or metal storms. Okay, that does work with what we imagine about this, because we have talked about how the like ash in the air is actually a little bit reflective, and it's glinted in the red light before. And perhaps that's because it's not just ash, but also just a lot of, as it says, silica or metal storms. There's a lot of just little micro metals in the air that can be very abrasive, particularly when the winds pick up, and it's a real problem. They can really cut you apart. And so I think it's not that Emile gets overtaken by him, because he's watching out for this storm, but he sees it, like at first it kind of blends in with the smoke over the horizon that he's heading towards. But then the winds kind of blow it a little bit off, and he sees, wait, it's separating, that's its own separate thing. And he sees this storm in the distance that's still generally in the direction he's trying to go. And there's a great worry about whether or not it's going to overtake him, because it looks pretty wide, and there are like some amount of computers and like cameras on the skiff that are able to zoom in and analyze what he sees a little bit. And he zooms in just enough to tell like composition and everything, like this is not a dust storm, this is not an ash storm, but sees it analyzes just that little bit and determines that it's blowing around these little micro metals. And the computer on board I think even warns him about that. So what would Emile do in this case? So I think the idea is that if he just flat on continues without doing anything different, he's going to be overtaken by this storm, and that's going to really not only risk cutting him apart, but potentially even really damage the skiff as well. It may, depending on what it cuts through, it could make it inoperable. So I think what Emile does, since he's not really in a hurry, is he's going to look out for like some place where some little cave system or something where he can park this and await the storm passing. He's not in a hurry on this. He just wants to do this smart. So I think that would best be represented by just securing an advantage. We're assessing the situation. We're trying to gain leverage by indeed finding some good hideout that can give us at least a lot of protection for the storm. Maybe it won't be completely surrounding, but something that could be at least in the direction where the winds are blowing from to take out the worst of it. That's definitely another wits thing. So let's secure an advantage with wits. That one is a miss, though. Those dice were a 9 and an 8. So hard to overcome that. So you fail or your assumptions betray you. Pay the price. Well, I think it's obvious what kind of area we're going to be exploring here as far as what the problem is going to be. Emile, I think it's that he can't find any good, like, complete cave system to get inside fully. So he finds a place that's, like, at least a little bit of a wall that would block him in the direction that the winds are blowing. But then as the storm comes and hits his spot, as it comes towards him, the winds shift. And now it starts pummeling against where he's parked the skiff, blowing against him and the skiff just against the wall, which makes it kind of hard to escape as well. Like, he's got to gun this skiff to get out of here. So first off, as far as paying the price, I'm going to do some damage to the vehicle itself, because I think Emile's got decent cover from it. He's got all of these layers on that it's going to take a little while for the metal to, like, abrade through. And he can also hide behind some of the walls of the skiff as well. Like, he's got a decent amount of protection. The vehicle itself has none. So I know this is in here. Let's withstand damage, one we've never done, because we've not done a lot of vehicle stuff. Really, any. So when your vehicle faces a damaging situation or environment, which is exactly what we've got, -1 integrity for minor damage, 2 for serious damage, or 3 for major damage. I'm torn between 1 and 2, because it is indeed just a relatively quick moment where, like, it's not like he's leaving this out for hours or anything like that, where that would be serious damage. I'm going to have an oracle. I'm going to 50-50 between the two, because I honestly can't determine whether this should be, since it's just a miss and not a miss with a match, like, just how bad this should be to the ship. So the question for the oracle is, should this be minor damage, 50-50? And the oracle says, no. All right, this is major damage. So indeed, they're blowing fast and hard and just, like, tearing away at this vehicle, like cutting lines into it. Some of the fabric on Emile's, like, overduster and like the robes and everything, all of the heavy cloth that he's wearing against the environment, they're fraying immediately. You can hear it, just this awful screeching sound as it almost like, rusty nail against, like scratching against rusty metal kind of sounds as it's just shearing through this ship. It's a combination of just shearing and clanking noises. He knows he's got to get out of here. So we're going to -2 to this skiff. I'm going to treat it like I've got a temporary asset card. Like, I know we don't have the asset of a vehicle that would represent this, but we're going to pretend like we do. I am going to start it as if it only had 4 health instead of 5, or 4 structure, or whatever it's called, instead of 5, because it indeed got blasted in the explosion. And while Emile fixed it up a little bit, it's not exactly in like ship shape. So let's set that down to 2. Integrity is the word. So we set that down to 2. We don't have to lose momentum because it does not overflow. So we can try and resist the damage. We're not compelled to, because integrity is not 0. And let's see, I would roll the remaining integrity. Yeah, it's hard for me to pass up this sort of thing. I gotta try. So I'm going to make a roll with my integrity, and let's see how this goes. Very, very badly. Miss with a match that I came so close to turning into that was almost a strong hit with a match, but not quite. So, oof, should not have done that. It's worse than I thought. Suffer an additional -1 integrity, which brings me down to 1. But considering this is a match, I think it's just an additional -2. So what happens is, like, Emile is just working on trying to get out of here. It takes a little bit too long. Like, the engines on this thing stall and are having trouble getting going, as he had been ready to just utterly park here and wait it out. He was not ready to gun it anymore because he didn't trust how much fuel would be there to just wait, because he's been sitting there waiting for the storm to get there for, let's say, like an hour or so. He didn't want to just leave it running the whole time. It got there, the wind shifted, it's blasting against him. He struggles to get the engine to start again with all of this interference going on. We go all the way down to integrity of 0, and this thing, it craps out. This is an incidental vehicle, so there is a table for me to roll on. So the randomly determined cost is, it's a rough ride. All aboard must make the endure harm, endure stress, or a companion takes a hit move, suffering a serious -2 cost. So it's indeed just like Emile had been kind of hiding behind some of the walls of it a little bit, while like ducking down while he's trying to do it. But enough of it has like shorn off the tops of these walls that it's just getting to him and some of his robes, and it's just cutting through and indeed hitting him as well. So I have to endure a -2 harm. My health is only 1 right now, so that is going to overflow to my momentum. So health is at 0 as it's just road rashing through, just tearing away at some of my skin now. He's really got to find a way out of here. Momentum is down to 2. Emile has to try and endure harm because his health is at 0. So let's see how that goes. We could be off to a really rough start here. Oh no. It is another miss with the match. It's going to be one of these kind of sessions. It is worse than I thought. Suffer an additional -1 health or lose momentum -2, which I can't lose any more health. So, I mean, technically, I'm going to lose momentum -1 because I'm going to choose to lose the health, but I can't do it, so it turns into momentum. But if my health is 0, you must also mark wounded or permanently harmed or roll on the table below. So Emile is finally going to get wounded. We've never seen this happen. I think I do that in place of the -1. No, I'm going to be mean and say it's in addition to it. So I lose the -1 health, which overflows. I lose 1 momentum. And because my health is at 0, I am wounded. Now, that would all happen on just a regular miss, though. So it's a relatively low match, but I need miss with a match to happen to reflect something. It's not going to be that I'm full-on permanently harmed as well, but clearly it is just tearing off, like, way too much of Emile's flesh, and he's going to have to do something about it. What is the additional it's even worse than that. Maybe something could get blown away. I don't want it to be... Yeah, okay, it is a relatively minor match. So we're going to say that Emile's the rifle that he had modified into the cutting implement, it had been like slung over his shoulder, and as he's like trying to shield himself and everything, he adjusts his shoulder more. It comes right off and just blows away into the storm, and just gets carried away into the distance. Who knows where it's going to be? Now I need to find out, like, how big is this storm? How long is it lasting? Is that the end and it's just passed and now he can deal with it, or is he still in the thick of the storm? So we're going to roll some oracles here, because he certainly has not done anything other than get blasted by it, but the storm will pass on its own, so that this could just represent all of that entirely. I think that, like, the winds are very strong, and I don't think it's like a full-on hurricane or anything, though. Like, it's a dangerous storm, but it's not the worst. No, you know what? I'm just going to say, like, I am more interested in the outcome where it's passed. He got utterly beat up for it. The ship he is piloting right now got utterly beat up for it. But then that's it. Like, he was not able to hide from it. He just had to take, he lost time, and he took all of this battering, but now he can move on. So after that waypoint going terribly, I feel like, based on where we are right now, there would not be a lot to explore, like, expecting to find much of anything to help bandage himself up or treat his wounds. But man, health is at 0, spirit is at 0. We've got supply at least. Oh, we did scavenge generic medical supplies. That was part of last session. So Emile is indeed going to try and take the opportunity here before moving on. Let's try and heal. I gotta try and heal myself, which, oh no, wait, that's iron or wits, whichever is lower when you're trying to mend your own wounds. Ooh. With momentum this low, it may not be the time. I may need to wait on that. And I think the narrative justification for it is that there's a break in the storm, and Emile better wants to use that time getting the engine running so he can get out of here and not get caught in it again, rather than repair his own wounds and risk getting caught in it all over again if the winds shift. So before Emile can leave, before I can try and get to another waypoint, I think I do need to solve the problem where the engine shut off, and just try to get this thing running again. So I'm going to do that as just a... No, I've changed my mind. I'm a firm believer in the idea that you don't roll dice when you're only interested in one of the outcomes. And I think it is not interesting to me to watch him sit there and, like, try and get the engine started. I want him to continue this journey. So it takes some time, but not in a full momentum loss kind of way or anything like that. But once the storm is passed, he's eventually able to kind of clear out some of the silicate inside that are clogging up the engines, blast some things, get the engines to be able to fire again, and then is able to lift up and continue this journey. So let's hope it works a little bit better this time as we continue our expedition. We are going to continue this with vigilance. So this will again be with wits. Well, it's a miss, but at least it doesn't have a match this time. So on a miss, you are waylaid by a crisis or arrive at a waypoint to confront an immediate hardship or threat. Do not mark progress and pay the price. How would I like to interpret this? Part of my first immediate thought is the idea of the people... Yeah, let's go with the immediate thought here. Let's bring Valkyrie back into the mix. Valkyrie has headed in for Emile. Like, Valkyrie survived the explosion, as we know, and absolutely blames Emile for all of this. Was already, before any of it started, at least a little bit at odds with him in that they were kind of working counter to each other. Valkyrie would have seen the lead up to the explosion, realizing that something was going on within the internals to set it off. So, like, Valkyrie has all the evidence to think that this is Emile's doing. And then I think when Emile took this skiff, it did indeed set off some manner of like, the control room was able to determine that they were no longer getting kind of like a beacon signal from one of their vehicles. I think Valkyrie has investigated this and has taken another skiff out there with a band of people. Valkyrie would not do this alone, but collected basically a posse. Let's see. Waylaid by a crisis or confront an immediate hardship at a waypoint. I think let's do a full-on chase scene here. Because like Emile finally gets the engines going. And then as he's about to celebrate, laser fire just plinks like right to the side of his head, and like you see there's the little puff of rubble that comes off, hits him in the side of the face just a little bit. Like no, like it's more like you feel it more than it being damaging, but it goes off. A few others hit. Like it becomes clear as he sees in the distance, several 100 yards away, but like closing in fast. There is a skiff, and somebody is on board with their own like sniper rifle kind of thing that tried to take him out, but did not account quite properly. And let's make this a chase. So I am going to add a clock to this. It is only 4 segments. This time the clock is now representing that like when the clock fills up, they've caught up with him. So now speed is actually going to be of the essence. And is there anything that Emile can do to make a quick preparation because my momentum is so terrible, and I gotta start giving me some kind of ways to deal with this. Let's see. What can I maybe do? Maybe I can... Okay. Emile is going to try and quickly bypass a kind of lockout on how this skiff controls, to try and basically give it a little bit of a nitro where like he's going to burn through the fuel more quickly, but he'll pick up so much more speed to maybe be able to just lose them a little bit more easily. The other dangerous thing that just occurred to me, he could try and lead them back into the storm and see, it would be a real risky move, but he knows that he might be able to lose them that way. I am using my gearhead here to try and repurpose this equipment to basically just make the engine more about speed than efficiency, to just have a bit of a turbo boost. This is going to be a secure and advantage, and I will take +1 from my gearhead and an additional +1 momentum on a hit. Let's see how this goes. Secure and advantage with wits and a +1. This should help me pull out of the slump. Strong hit. Okay. Awesome. That +1 was all the difference. One of the challenge dice came to play, but the +1 gave me an edge over it. So, strong hit. I will get +1 momentum from my asset right away. I also take 2 momentum from the strong hit, and I get to add a +1 to my next move. Sorry, now we're set off a little bit more. So Emile, he quickly does that. He's done this sort of thing before. He knows kind of what is the hotkey to get into the developer menu on this computer to access the things that most consumers aren't allowed to for testing purposes. And he knows, like, okay, this model, there is absolutely a way to, you push the back button 9 times on this menu and all this, and eventually you can open up these other features, one of which includes turbo mode. And Emile totally pushes it into turbo mode and just jumps it. So let's try and get to the next waypoint using speed with a +1 this time. I guess the question is, before I even roll it, narratively, is Emile going to try and move towards the storm to try and lose them? Because otherwise it's like I don't want to lead them entirely to the ship, which would mean I'd have to find some way to shake them. That's the best way that comes to mind, with some, broad definition of the word best. It at least uses the narrative we've already got so far. But God, his health and spirit is so low, this could so backfire. I think for the moment, Emile's just going to try and rely on the speed to lose them. Like, if he can just go so much faster than them, eventually they just won't be able to see him well enough, and he's just going to try and shake them first, because he can't really very well focus on getting to the ship while they're trailing him like that, and he doesn't want to lead them there. So first off, Emile, I'm going to commit to it. Let's just face danger to try and react to the threat of like he's being fired at and he needs to try and lose them. So in this scene challenge, he's going to face danger with edge and a +1 to try and shake them. Strong hit. You are successful and mark progress. On a strong hit with a match, mark progress twice. So, how are we going to represent this mechanically? Here's my thought on this. I have made a second progress track that is incidentally also dangerous, called The Chase is On. That has a 4 clock on it, which represents whether or not they're going to catch up with him. Now, depending on exactly what the moves are, sometimes when I make progress on one, I may also say that I'm going to make progress on my journey to the crashed reactor, because I think he is still generally heading in that direction. And depending on the move, sometimes it'll only apply to one or the other. But in this case, because it was just about gunning it in that direction to try and lose them, I'm going to actually mark progress on both. So Emile is going to reach a new waypoint in what is now a race towards the crashed reactor, and he's gaining distance on them, which is why he's filled in progress on The Chase is On. So let's find out a little bit about what is this new area of the planet, what is this new waypoint. And I'm, again, because it worked out pretty well last time, going to inspire it by a planet-side feature from the furnace world and see how that works. Roiling clouds of superheated gas. No, I don't like that one as much. That feels a little bit too similar to kind of... It looks different, but it's kind of a very similar concept to... Like, there's a big metal storm, and it's gonna just... If it touches you, it's gonna really damage you a lot. So I'm going to try and do a descriptor and focus to inspire this a little bit more. Archaic mineral. See, that I like more. Maybe there's something sticking up from the landscape made of this, the same kind of metal that eventually turns into these giant metallic storms. And it's very valuable in theory, and I think also so yeah, here's what happens. It's like, imagine, if you will, kind of like your classic sort of six-sided crystal shape that comes to a tapered point at the top. There's something that looks kind of like that, made of metal, sticking out at a jaunty angle from the ground. And perhaps even a whole landscape of them where like it's kind of tight quarters to get through without running into them. It's a little bit of it's this whole field of them. And I want to say that there are indications that they're not naturally formed. They are man-made, but or not necessarily like by a human, but some life form made these at one point, and they're just scattered throughout, and we can't really tell exactly what they are. And Emile leads them into this field because he sees it and figures like that's another opportunity, that if he can cut off line of sight, he can maybe get himself lost a little bit in kind of the visuals of these jaunty ants, because they're kind of close together. It broadens at some points, but some parts get pretty compact. And Emile figures he can use that to his advantage to, again, just kind of lose them in here. And depending on what these are, he may be able to even use them. So let's see. What could these... What are these little kind of metal crystal big thing? Because I see them as the size of like... The part that's sticking out of the ground is probably about the size of like a van. And like a decently sized van. Like, so you could fit several people inside of it if it were hollow. But like big pieces of metal. And there's a lot of them, so they serve some kind of purpose. I kind of like the idea just because I want to make this kind of frenetic and kinetic and all of those fun words and chaotic, all the icks. I want to ask the Oracle if maybe these things could be explosive in some form. No, here's what I want to know more about these things. So I think as Emile is heading into this area, why don't we gather information to analyze on the screen, like the information that he's pulling up about them, and just from what he can see, wants to know a little bit more about like what are these things? Are they something that he could maybe use It'll do that before he focuses too much on getting lost in them. So let's gather information. I think this one's just going to be a regular old wits move because we're not truly scavenging this or anything. So let's see. Okay, a weak hit. So the information provides new insight, but also complicates your quest. Envision what you discover, then take +1 momentum. Well, momentum is now at 5, which is a much more comfortable place to be in than I was earlier. Oh, right. I need to treat this like secure and advantage. So Emile wants to learn more about these things. So we're going to do a secure and advantage with wits. Since again, we're in scene challenge mode. I might have otherwise done this as gather information, but we need to kind of oscillate between the two moves for now until we resolve this challenge. So this is going to be secure and advantage scene challenge mode with wits. All right, we have a weak hit here, which means I get to choose one of these. Either take 2 more momentum or +1 on my next move, not a progress move. I feel like because this is just about learning information, this is about ramping up the momentum. It's nothing that's going to explicitly help him with anything, but it's adding to his ability to use the situation. So we're going to take 2 momentum here, and let's answer a question about what these things are. So this justifies to me the ability to roll on the action and theme oracle to get a bit of an idea to inspire what are these things. Move and knowledge. Oh, that could be interesting. Like maybe, because these things seem ancient. Emile can clearly tell they've been here for so long. Like there's definitely more of them sticking into the ground than what he can just see. And there are some manner of abilities to, one could indeed open them up and access some things inside. There's like hatches and stuff. So why are there so many of them? I think that these things, they contain information about no, okay. I've got it. Emile recognizes these things. It's not even just the computer. He starts to remember them they're from the Reacher. They're not ancient, they're just these storage capsules that have a lot of just the research data that's stored from the Reacher. Like everything that they've been studying about these various different creatures and stuff wound up just coming out from a hole in the side of the ship at one point during the crash, and a lot of them just seem to fall in here. And so now it's just littered with these things. Emile knows that there would be a lot of information all about the creatures they've studied stored within kind of the hard drives and just notes on samples and stuff like that. All of that would be in this field. And in a different situation, he would love to have the opportunity to analyze it more. But right now the chase is still on. And while he has gained some ground, he doesn't expect that he can just full on do that. Not unless he loses them. And so in the name of the initial epic vow, if it takes me to the end of my days, I will find VY572 and destroy it. Emile gets a little bit of a tinge in his... He gets that feeling like he doesn't want these to potentially get buried by ash storms and metal storms and stuff like that. They could get damaged by that. He may not have a forever opportunity to scrutinize these. And in fact, they look like it's not just where they were landed, but they're already at least somewhat buried. That's why you're only seeing part of them stick out of the ground. Emile doesn't want to lose these, so he's going to try and indeed focus on, rather than continue the journey to the crashed Reacher, that can come later, he is going to focus on just losing them in this maze so that he can get off and take the opportunities to learn from this and find any information on VY572 while he can. Because if there's one thing that Emile is certain of, it's that things have been going terribly for him lately. This planet has been awful. He lost somebody he cared about. And you know whose fault it is? VY572. And it just redoubles his thoughts that this is the way that he'll eventually be able to take revenge. So we're going to make a face danger move. This one with Shadow, because he's going to try and get lost in here. Try and lose these dudes. Okay. Sadly, we're not very good with Shadow, but thankfully we've got some decent momentum. Let's see which one... Let's see if any of that helps me. We're doing this as Scene Challenge version of Face Danger with Shadow, and we have a miss, but indeed I could turn this into a strong hit with momentum, and I feel like that's probably worth it. So let's burn momentum, bringing myself down from 7 to, oh, that's right, my reset value is now 1 because I'm wounded. Ordinarily you reset to 2, not so anymore. So I lose 6 momentum in the process, but I get a strong hit, almost a strong hit with a match, but not quite. So I'm going to get to mark progress on this vow. Emile does a decent job, like kind of swerving around a little bit and not being immediately within the... Like he kind of aims towards some of the bigger ones and breaking the line of sight to the best visibility. The problem that he has right now is that if he were to just hide right at this moment, it might be a little bit obvious where, like, if they chose to search for him, which they very well might, the path that his ship took is not that hard to follow. Like, it really blows a lot of the ash and stuff on the ground away and makes a pretty clear path of where he went. And so without doing some more work to try and make it, like, very hard to follow and sneak back on itself a lot more and just make it really unclear where he went, that alone would not do it. Or at the very least is very unlikely to do it, because I've only got 4 boxes out of 10 in my progress right now. So let's see, is there anything else Emile could do to try and make preparations here? Like, how could he better do this? Oh, for one, he should probably not be in turbo mode anymore. It's a bit of a gamble, because obviously when he slows down, they will better be able to catch up with him. But it does also mean it'll be easier for him to not run into things. And harder for the... It won't disrupt as much of the ash when he's going in more of a quiet running mode. So why don't we actually do that? Let's secure an advantage with wits. And my gearhead move to now quickly change it out of turbo mode and into actually more of a quiet running mode, where it's almost like it's eco mode, but in the sense of, like, not fuel preserving, but just minimal impact on the environment. So he turns this hovercraft into a kind of eco mode, or at least he's going to attempt to. So let's secure an advantage with my gearhead. Wits with a +1. Okay, that's a weak hit. So as before, I can either take 2 momentum or 1 on my next move. In this case, especially with momentum being as low as it is, I think I'm actually going to go for 1 on my next move, because I'm going to need all the help I can when he tries to indeed really find a spot to just hide him. Another thing Emile could do, because he could crawl inside one of these and just hide. That wouldn't be too bad. If he could get one open, he could hide himself. The problem is the skiff is going to be right next to it, and that would be very unclear, or that would be very telling. So I think what Emile is going to do is actually try and set this thing up. He's going to basically jump off while it's going and let the skiff continue in a direction, hopefully set up in a way to eventually slow down. Oh, right, my gearhead gives me 1 momentum on a hit, so I do actually go up to 2. The skiff is going to continue past him, just more into the field of these various capsules, and hopefully occlude which one he'd be near, because if it's not nearby, it's a lot less obvious which one he went inside. And of course, they could still follow the tracks. So this is going to be an edge move, because this is all about the nimbleness to try and jump off just right to not hurt yourself. So face danger with edge and a +1. Oh god, high challenge dice and no way to deal with that. That is definitely a miss. So I fail, or a momentary success is undermined by a dramatic turn of events. Fill a clock segment and pay the price. It is thankfully not a miss with a match, but it came damned close. That's an 8 and a 9. So in this process of trying to work on this, they do get that little bit closer, right? Which makes sense. Emile is no longer going all that fast. He's not even really trying to get away, so they're definitely closing the distance towards finding him. I think for the moment they don't see him, and so he's not, like, worried about the laser blasts coming in, but pay the price. I think the most obvious one is indeed, like, it's hard to make that landing work well. He's not going that fast, so I'm just going to make this a -1 health hit, but he hits the ground hard, and a surface that perhaps he thought was going to be a little bit softer isn't, and so he wasn't taking as much of an opportunity as he should have to get a nice landing in there, and just his hip hits like a really rocky part of this big open. This whole landscape is covered in that sort of metallic and ashy just coating everywhere, and it made it seem like this was going to be thicker and more cushioning than it was. This exact spot, Emile hits just a little bit too hard. So we're going to take that 1 health hit, which brings my momentum down because I can't take it to my health. And because I'm at 0 health, I have to try and resist it. So let's endure harm. Okay, thankfully that was a strong hit. So I can either shake it off and... oh, no, I can't. If I weren't wounded, I could shake it off and take +1 health. But of course I am. I'm way too cut up from all of the metal shavings and stuff in the air that just... God, it is quite a sight to look at. Especially because when I imagine Emile's typical garb, like what he's wearing underneath all of these robes, I had seen him in my mind as just like, you know, he's got these kind of like tinted glasses that he usually wears that have the heads-up display on them, connected to the hip pack, and the glove that he wears on his left hand that have sort of a cable between them. But I otherwise kind of pictured him as wearing like typically like a tank top underneath that, like likes to have that mobility and everything. And so there's not a lot, like once it kind of ripped through some of the robe outside of him, the thick blankets covering him against the environment and the caustic air, it has just been shaving away right at his direct skin. Just these long jagged grooves. It's a mess. Lots of blood, and that's going to hit the ground. But thankfully, he has the opportunity now to embrace the pain and recognizes that, you know what? Right now, life just sucks. But if I can just go through it, like, he's in the mode of, like, you gotta cauterize the wounds. Not literally in this sense, but you need to just have a little bit of pain to make it through to what's going to be better. If I don't do things that hurt myself, if I don't leap off this platform, they're going to catch up with me and they're going to kill me. Taking a little bit of pain was the right call. And so he recognizes this. And it's partly because of his focus right now on revenge, that his mind is in a little bit more of a committed, like, it's all going to be worth it. It's not. And because he's so blaming VY572 for all of this, the pain almost kind of supports him in that mentality, where it's like, that's right, this is the suck that is VY572's fault. He's not turning it inwards. So, okay. Thankfully, we didn't have a miss, so I don't have to roll on the table or anything like that. So Emile, it hurts him, but the skiff is indeed, it's pushed away a little bit. It's maybe enough. It's hard to tell. He'd sure love to now get a little bit farther away from where it is. It's still going a little bit of a distance, so Emile is now on foot with the rebreather in, but like feeling kind of just his open skin. It is not a very nice environment for even just full skin, but especially once you've cut all of these wounds into it. Boy, does it sting. There's so much in the air that is just so bad for that. But he's embracing the pain right now, and he is going to try and get farther away quickly on foot. So I'm going to make an edge move. Let's see. Should this be face danger or secure an advantage? It's face danger. We're going to do an edge face danger move where, because like this whole environment is still caustic and bad, the more that if he were to just get inside one of these right now, he could escape some of this air and it would feel so much nicer. But he's staying out in the bad caustic environment, which is inherently dangerous. So we're going to do this as face danger with edge, as he tries to run several more like little pods away to just try and all the more hide where he is in relation to the skiff. Oh man, it is a miss. So you fail, or momentary success is undermined by a dramatic turn of events once again. So we fill another clock segment as they get closer, and I think part of the problem, like Emile, like he's hurt really badly. He just keeps, it's a hard surface to run on, like, because it's like running in sand, and so he keeps kind of like losing his footing a little bit. He's not getting very far away, and also like the skiff itself just stops. Like it's gone as far as it's going to go, and it's not as far away from Emile as he would have liked. And that's not great. So we've certainly described how he fails, but we do still need to properly pay the price. And I think it just has to be in the direction of, as we described, like this environment is bad for it. And perhaps even like Emile stumbles down into the sand at one point, and when he does so, buried in there were a couple of just jagged larger pieces of metal that had not fully abraded yet. And one of them just stabs into his palm on one side. It is... If it were a miss with a match, I would say it's directly into the AR glove side. But because it's not, I'm going to say kindly to myself, it's on the side that doesn't have the AR glove. It's not going to damage that. But Emile's going to take some harm. Definitely just a -1 harm, though. That's not that bad. But it sets our momentum back to 1. It means that we have to make this attempt to endure harm. And I feel like I'm on a bit of a death spiral right now. I'm going to have to find some way out of this, or they are definitely going to catch up. Okay, we at least got a weak hit out of it. Unfortunately, the only thing I could get out of a weak hit would require me to not be wounded, and I am. So I've got to just press on. It just sucks. And he's, holds up his hand for a moment and squeezes some pressure against it and starts debating over, like, is this enough? Should I just hide in one of these? But he knows, like, it's just not good enough. He's got to do something. Emile needs to set himself up for some success. We need to secure an advantage, like use his wits somehow, because all of his resources are too low. He needs to either put together some kind of device or do something that he's actually good at, because I cannot trust anything to work right now. We're just going to be circling the drain. So what could Emile do here? How might he... Well, why don't we find out this thing that he just cut himself on? What is it? Emile pulls it up from the ground. And I'm going to roll a descriptor and focus to determine a little bit more about what is this thing. It says peaceful and ship. It certainly makes me think of a piece of a ship, a piece in the different context. And that would make sense. This whole field is filled with littered parts of the Reacher. This could be another thing that broke off. I am going to do some random rolls about a derelict to determine, like, what kind of area might this have come from, and so what might this be? Because this is another piece of the Reacher that he cut himself on. So the zone of a starship is engineering. We're well familiar with that zone. And let's roll a feature. Control terminal. Okay. If this is from some kind of control terminal, maybe it has a functional computer still. Emile's good with computers. I am just grasping at whatever straws are available. I'm going to roll an oracle about whether this thing is still functional. It's not very likely considering the crash and everything, but let's see. Is this a piece of terminal that has somehow survived and could be powered to do something? I don't even know what it would be powered to do. I'm just looking for anything he might be able to make use of to try and pull himself out of this nosedive. So asking the oracle, is this control terminal still functioning? And I'm putting that as unlikely. Is it still functioning? No. All right. So is there anything he could maybe do with a non-functional, like you can't turn this on, control terminal? I mean, I could certainly... we know it can cut a person if you land on it wrong. There's some sharp edges to it. Is there anything inside? No, I think this is a bit of a dud. I don't think it can work that way. Maybe... Okay, what is Emile... Let's check Emile's gear a little bit to see if maybe I can think of something that he has on him that he could use in some kind of way, or could cobble together into something else. What would I most want in this situation that could make any kind of sense? I'd say a weapon, but we're mostly trying to hide right now. It's less about fighting back, so probably not looking in the direction of a weapon. Emile needs something to be able to make it look like he's in one place, but he's actually in another place. I feel like something like a hollow projector that would make it look like there's something else going on is way too much of a reach for check your gear. Like there's no way he found one of those. We know that he had... What might he want here? Well, we know he's got some quick medicine stuff. Maybe just something that would just protect a little... He could use to protect more of his skin from the environment, because that's just been hurting him just existing out here right now, because he's not covered up enough against it. It's too ripped up. So is there something we could do that would cover him up, that would at least make him better able to focus by not being in pain this whole time without just crawling inside one of these? And what would that look like? I don't think there's any reason why Emile would take like an extra set of robes or anything like that. That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, based on the area we described, I just can't think of something that would make sense to be here that he could like scavenge for or anything like that, much as I really, really want to. The only thing that possibly could is maybe inside these pods there's more than just information. There may also be supplies or samples or something he could use. So Emile is going to try, and we're going to represent this as secure an advantage with wits, where he's scavenging. And it's functionally, we're doing this like a resupply. It's just, we're doing it as secure an advantage because it's on a scene clock. So I'm going to give myself the scavenger move, +1 and +1 momentum on a hit, as he opens up the nearest pod that he's next to see if there's just anything inside that he could use. The nearest several pods, just what could he use to his advantage around here? Scene challenge, secure an advantage, wits with a +1. Oh, it is a good thing I had all those, because the dice were not helping me. It is a strong hit, so I am successful. I take +2 momentum and add +1 on my next move. In addition, because of my scavenger move, I get an additional +1 on top of that. It is not a strong hit with a match, so I'm successful. I find something, and as a player, I need more help on what that is, because I'm struggling a little bit. What might they keep inside one of these pods that's not just tech stuff, but is still in the name of like storing information that they had about creatures, potential creature samples, stuff like that? Maybe there is... What if one of these has inside of it a stored specimen, like a dead creature, it's long dead. Inside there's a glass tube inside one of them that has totally broken from the crash, the impact. Like the glass itself shattered, it's all over the place inside of this thing. And inside there is a creature that Emile might be able to kind of like... we could tauntaun this, cut it open and get inside for a little bit of a protection against the environment. And also maybe be able to hide from these dudes a little bit better. It's a big creature. I'm going to roll some random stuff about it, other than its scale, because it's going to be big enough for Emile to be able to do that. But what environment is it theoretically from? It's a land creature. It was insectoid or exoskeletal. So, okay. A giant bug of some variety. Large enough that Emile could get inside, but not too much bigger than that. It would still have to fit inside like a van, but a pretty massive insectoid that is... that's dead. First look shows ridges or plates, which makes sense. So it's got like a... Actually, that could be really good for just an armor for Emile. It's got this very hard chitinous armor that might be a little bit hard to get through to get inside, but maybe. And revealed creature aspect. Radioactive. Well, that's wonderful. So yeah, perhaps there's... I don't think Emile necessarily knows that, though. We know that as the audience. But Emile, in the best of circumstances, there would have been some indication of like there'd be like a Geiger counter or something to make it clear. Like this thing that it was inside was supposed to protect from all of that radiation, but it's not there anymore. It's all broken open. So now that's just kind of leaking out. Okay. I could ask the Oracle about how much radiation this is, or I could go with the fun answer and just say a mutating amount of radiation. If Emile engages with this, he's going to get some kind of a mutation when this is all done. And that's too tasty for me to go away from. So Emile sees an opportunity in front of him, and he's going to make a face danger to try and just get in there, and with like the shards of glass and stuff that he's got around, the pieces of metal, shards of glass, metal, various stuff he's got around, he's going to try and cut open a cavity inside this insectoid creature so that he can get inside, close the door to this, and get inside the insect just in case, hide out in there and wait for them to pass and hope that that's enough to just fool them. Let's face danger. This is going to be with... We could... I don't think... It's not like he's doing surgery. I don't think there's... Wits are really involved here. I don't think that it's... I mean, I honestly, I think this is mostly a shadow move. I mean, certainly the hiding is. It's either, like... It's a hard carapace. I think this part is an iron move, because he's got to get it open. And that just takes determination and strength to just manage to get through this thing. Then hiding out and covering his tracks have got to be a shadow move. So both of those are things he's not good at. At least I have a +1 on this. Face danger, iron with a +1, as he tries to cut through this carapace. This radioactive carapace. Miss with a match, with no ability to momentum my way out of this. Double 6 match. You fail, or a momentary success is undermined by a dramatic turn of events. I feel like this thing has got to still be alive. Emile starts cutting into it, and it was in like a hibernation mode. And so now this giant radioactive bug with big clackable mandibles and stuff, and like mantis-like sort of bladed arms. Like this thing is ready to fight. And it was Emile wakes it from a hibernation mode. Oh, and because this is a miss with the match, we have to fill 2 segments on the clock, which finishes the clock. So let's do that. As this creature comes to life, let's see if maybe he just happens to lose them in the chase anyway. Because we have a 4-segment clock, which I need to make a progress roll against. Not looking good. Let's see. The chase is over. Miss with a match and the same 6s. It was a double 6 match again. So, okay. This is bad. This is all very bad. They catch up absolutely. Let's see. In theory, what did it say about you fail or undermined by a dire and costly turn of events, pay the price. So, as this insect comes back to life, ready to just lash out at Emile and fight him, so too do the posse that were chasing after him totally catch up, find where he went. They hear they're like chasing, they find the skiff, and then they hear the insect make a horrible screeching noise, like kind of noise from it that much louder, echoes throughout. All their heads turn and they head over. So Emile is flanked between the two. On the one side, he's got this insect that's about to come in at him. On the other side, we have all of the posse ready to just, with guns trained on him, ready to just fire on him. The only thing that you could even argue is helping him here is the very fact that it's such a complicated situation and the insect isn't taking sides. Like, the insect is going to be against all of them. It won't understand that only Emile was the one attacking it. So that's at least a little bit of a chaos factor. But the rest of them are ready to just shoot. This is going to be a big brawl. We're going to have our first full-on just fight. We've not done that yet. But the bad news is, we're not going to be able to get to that fight until next time. Oh, sometimes I feel so bad for Emile and feel like I really just want to get right back into it and find out what's going to happen. And those are the moments that I always choose to end on, because I love that feeling of I can't wait to hear more. I hope you enjoy it as well, but if not, maybe you'll more enjoy getting to work on this week's prompts. So this week, the prompts are another action and theme, and we're going to be going with inspect and safety. How do I want you to apply these this time? I would love you to take inspect and safety and tell me all about an area of scientific research that somebody is doing. Somebody has just made a big breakthrough in their research, and it has to do with the prompts inspect and safety. And I would love you to tell me a little bit more about what have they discovered. How long have they been working on it? How big of a deal is this? up to you, but I would love to hear, so please send your answers in to starforgedpod@gmail.com. I always love hearing them. And as for my call to action this week, could one of you tell me what the hell I'm going to do to get Emile out of this situation? Because, oh my god, this is looking rough. So send me that to starforgedpod@gmail.com or comments below this episode. What am I gonna do? This is looking so bad for Emile. As a reminder, his momentum is okay, but it's only at 4. His health is at 0. He's wounded. His spirit is at 0. His supply is pretty good. He's caught between a giant insect that's ready to just maul him and a bunch of people with guns trained on him from behind. There is no way that I'm going to be able to represent this as anything below just like a formidable fight. This has got to be really rough. Like, Emile's gonna have to find some way out of this pickle, and I need your help, so let me know. But until then, play me out, music.